Welcome to Smash Metafiction, the side project of Smash Fiction where we stop arguing and just spend some time together, look up at the stars and, get deep. Look, that's what you call a satellite. They used to bounce messages across the earth. Podcasts. Everyone in the old world had a podcast. Do you think there's still someone out there sending podcasts? Let's find out in this week's episode of Surprise Party. Once you had a name. You lived in a world that made sense, surrounded by people worth protecting. But then, that world was broken, and so were you. You've been running through this wasteland for so long that you can barely remember your old life, if it was ever even real to begin with. Hunted by scavengers, haunted by those you cannot protect, you exist in this wasteland, reduced to a single instinct: survive. The people around you aren't your teammates, and you're certainly not a hero. Instead, what binds you together is that all of you are the property of the terrible tyrant, the Lord of the Citadel, Immortan Joe. Maybe you're a blood bag, a war boy, a reluctant imperator, an oddity that he has kept as a trophy, or worst of all, breeding stock. But Joe is about to learn a lesson the hard way. You are not things, and sooner or later, someone pushes back. But this time, the group pushing back against him is going to be a lot more eclectic? And as we embark upon this bloody journey towards redemption, I, Claire Mulcairn, will serve as a distorted, hallucinatory face that pops up from time to time at the worst possible moments, reminding you of all your past failures. Joining me are Mad Miles Schneiderman.
Witness me! I mean, you can't, because I'm not, this is an audio podcast. You can't actually witness me, but if you could, you should be witness with your ears.
Imperator Meganbob.
You know what's not a surprise, listener? How great you are.
Oh.
And for the first time ever, getting a chance to be a player in a game of Surprise Party, it's the bullshit farmer himself, Dan Mulcairn.
Vroom vroom, y'all.
Oh my god.
For those of you who haven't listened to Surprise Party before, we're taking a classic team-centric story, in this case, Mad Max Fury Road, and we're replacing the central characters with other fictional characters. Each of our hosts will create their own party of broken misfits on the run from Immortan Joe, and we're going to see if they can come together as a group to overcome the many obstacles both in front of them and behind them, and build a better life for themselves out in the wasteland. Once each of them have their teams created, I'll present them with challenges that they encounter along the way. The players will take turns choosing a character from their team and explain how they deal with the challenge. After that point, the chosen character is unusable for the remainder of the game. At the end of each round, I'll decide privately which character met the challenge the best, using whatever sort of criteria I like, and award points accordingly. I cannot guarantee any sort of consistency to my methods. I am a mad god, and you are all subject to my whims. At the end of the game, I'll see which player had the most points, and they and their party will be declared the winner. So first off, let's choose your characters. And in order to do that, we're going to be rolling initiative.
I got a 1.
17.
A mighty 5.
So the order will be Miles, then Dan, and then Meganbob, but this order will be rotating every round. And to fill out this roster of characters, just like how when we were doing Lord of the Rings, we looked to Dungeons & Dragons to mix up the party a bit, this time we're looking at one of the most influential tabletop role-playing games in the past decade as a starting point for our parties. That's right, folks, when you need to populate an apocalypse with larger-than-life heroes, you can't go wrong by using the character playbooks from Apocalypse World. The first slot that each of you will be filling is the Battle Babe. In an endless sea of nameless post-apocalyptic raiders, the Battle Babe shines with an undeniable glow that says to anyone who sees them, I am a protagonist. They are a sexy, smooth action hero who wields a one-of-a-kind signature weapon as unique and beautiful as they are. Miles, who is your Battle Babe?
My Battle Babe is Brienne of Tarth.
Oh, man.
Oh, so good.
All right, Miles, tell us about Brienne of Tarth.
I mainly just wanted to subvert the whole beautiful thing. But beyond that, Brienne of Tarth is from the Song of Ice and Fire book series, which has definitely never been adapted. Shame, it really should be sometime. She is a really fucking awesome warrior. She is a female knight in a world where there are not supposed to be such things, and she is able to be that because she is a tremendous badass. She's also kind of piss ugly, so that also fucks you over when you're a woman in a world based in medieval fantasy. She has an over-exaggerated sense of loyalty and duty, and she has a Valyrian steel sword named Oathkeeper that means a lot to her for various reasons, and is also a really great sword.
Dan, who is your battle babe?
My battle babe is Rey from Star Wars.
All right, tell us about Rey.
I considered her.
Rey is an orphan. She grew up on the desert world of Jakku as a kind of scavenger / repairer of things. She developed a number of skills, including fighting and piloting while she was on Jakku as well, and eventually gets swept up into various galactic adventures and shenanigans as she joins in the fight against the First Order, inherits Luke Skywalker's old lightsaber, and becomes a Jedi. So she has a large number of skills, including a handful of supernatural skills and a laser sword.
Meganbob, who is your battle babe?
My battle babe is She-Ra. I'm choosing the old She-Ra from the 1980s. I assume it was the 80s.
Sure was.
She was stolen from Eternia as a baby and raised in Etheria by the Horde. So she knows all of their stuff, all of their Force Captain-y ways of keeping the Whispering Woods from, getting too noisy.
Keep it down to a whisper, Woods.
Yeah, exactly. She also has the Honor Sword, which has another name, doesn't it? Does it have another name? Is it just the Honor Sword?
It's a sword of protection, I think.
There we go. And every time she says, for the honor of Grayskull, she turns into a super cool lady with wings on her head.
The next character slot is the Brainer. Even by the standards of the Wasteland, people regard the Brainer as unnatural and tend to give them a wide berth. They can do things. Scary, powerful, weird things that no one can explain, and these abilities of theirs, possibly combined with their underdeveloped social skills, make them forever separated from the rest of humanity. Dan, who is your Brainer?
My Brainer is Carrie from the novel and movie of the same name.
Good choice.
like it.
Tell us a little bit about
That's
Carrie.
excellent.
So Carrie is a young high schooler who is raised by a religious / very abusive mother, and also encounters quite a bit of abuse from her classmates. This all culminates in one fateful prom night in which she is humiliated in front of the student body via a bucket of pig's blood being dumped on her. And it turns out she's actually a telekinetic, goes very murderous, and basically kills everyone and destroys a town.
Well, you're 2 for 2 on psychic, ladies. We'll see
That's
if we
right.
can keep it going. Meganbob, who is your Brainer?
Mine is Jack from Mass Effect.
Ooh,
Awesome.
nice.
Tell us about Jack.
Jack is, the best way to describe Jack is what might happen to Eleven from Stranger Things, I suppose, if things go very poorly. Raised in a facility from a young age, tortured, had the children around her tortured because Jack was the most promising one, so they were testing stuff out. They made Jack incredibly powerful and very, very dangerous, and Jack fears nothing and is very angry. I should say Jack has biotics, and biotics are kind of telekinesis, I guess the closest thing I can think to call them.
Miles, who is your Brainer?
My Brainer is Carolina Dean,
Aww.
aka Lucy in the Sky from Runaways.
Yay.
Cool. Tell us about her.
She's a teenager who discovers that her parents are actually aliens from a planet called Magistane. She is also an alien. The bracelet she's been made to wear her whole life, basically being told by her parents that she had an allergy to something that helped her with, or I guess it was like a metal alert bracelet actually is what they told her, is actually the thing that makes her look human instead of looking like a beautiful, like, rainbow-colored light creature that can fly and, like, shoot energy blasts. She, after discovering that her parents lied to her whole life, she takes the bracelet off, declaring that she's never going to wear it again because she's not going to hide who she is. She does wear it for the sake of expediency throughout the comics, but mainly she chooses to be herself, and she's also just a super nice, great person, and I love her.
Yeah.
All right, the third character slot is the Gunlugger. The world is an ugly and dangerous place. Luck favors the prepared, and the enormous arsenal of gear that the Gunlugger carries with them ensures that they are always prepared for any situation. The Gunlugger is a Swiss Army knife of death, and always has the right weapon or gadget for any situation. Meganbob, who is your Gunlugger?
My Gunlugger is Fiona Glenann from Burn Notice.
Okay, I'm not familiar with her. Tell us about her.
Whenever the show does the little intro thing and it introduces her character, what you see is her looking at Michael and saying, "Should we shoot them?" That tells you a lot about how Fiona approaches the world. She is former IRA, on the run, now kind of hiding out in the US, doing a lot of odd jobs for people. Most of the odd jobs that she likes to do involve C4 because she would never leave home without C4.
So lots of guns, lots of explosives, sounds like?
Oh, so good at improvised explosives.
All right. Miles, who is your gunlugger?
Okay, so my gunlugger is Vin from the Mistborn trilogy.
Okay, haven't read that yet. Tell us about Vin.
She is a Mistborn. What that means is that she has mastery over all the powers potentially granted to you if you are an Allomancer. What that means is that Vin can basically swallow small pieces of metal if there's any metal inside her body. Actually, not just swallow, like there's stuff with metal being stabbed into you as well, but that's not important right now. What happens is you swallow some metal like in an alcohol solution, and if you're an Allomancer, and if it's the right kind of metal, you can burn it within you, so like basically slowly use up its power until it's gone for a special magical ability. As far as Vin is concerned, there are 14 different allomantic metals. There are others, but they don't come in until later books. So the things Vin can do include shooting herself off metal things that are heavier than her, or pulling herself toward them. If a metal thing is lighter than she is, she can push it towards something else in another direction, or she can pull it towards herself. She can work on people's emotions, making them angrier and like more emotional, or she can soothe their emotions, making them calmer and more rational. She can also choose to riot and soothe specific emotions of people. So like if she wants someone to be more curious, she can make that happen. She can burn tin to enhance her senses. She can burn pewter to enhance her physical prowess, strength, toughness, speed, etc. She can burn another metal that she sometimes has that allows her to see a couple of seconds into the future. She can burn another metal that like enhances the ability of any of her other powers. She is incredibly versatile, and she uses all this basically to be a magic superhero assassin.
All right. Them's a lot of guns she's lugging. Dan, who is your gunlugger?
My gunlugger is the Predator.
Yeah,
Nice.
It's a good gunlugger.
Yeah, lots of guns he's lugging around. So the Predator is an alien hunter from the Predator and also Alien vs. Predator movies and greater series of media properties. The Predator is very physically strong and tough and fast. Also wears a mask that allows him to see in various spectra of light. He has a cloaking device which allows him to turn invisible. He has blades on his wrists. He has a shoulder-mounted plasma cannon. He has a weird serrated bladed frisbee that he can throw and like remote control around. Basically every new movie he has some kind of new gadget or weapon that he can use, and so he's able to pull out a lot of weird crazy alien weaponry, which, you know, probably will come in handy on this particular adventure.
All right, the fourth character slot is the Savvy Head. If there's one thing you can count on in the apocalypse, it's this. Things break. The Savvy Head is the one who puts them back together. They can fix things that others thought were long past repairing, and with enough spare parts and enough time, they can build anything they can imagine. And they can imagine quite a lot. Miles, who is your Savvy Head?
My Savvy Head is Miss K. Winnett Lee Fry
Oh, wow.
from Firefly.
All right, is that Kaylee?
That's Kaylee.
All right, tell us about Kaylee.
Kaylee is delightful. She is the engineer on Serenity who keeps the damn thing running when, by all means, that piece of shit should be falling out of the sky at any given moment. Somehow, she keeps it going. She has natural talent for engineering, and she's just a fucking gem. Who doesn't love Kaylee?
Dan, who is your Savvy Head?
My Savvy Head is Fix-It Felix.
Oh, he can fix it.
He sure can.
Tell us about him.
Genius.
Fix-It Felix is from the movie Wreck-It Ralph. He's basically just sort of a genial, friendly repairman who has a magic hammer that can instantly fix anything perfectly and is actually incapable of doing anything else. There's a scene in Wreck-It Ralph where he tries to like break some prison bars and he just makes them better. He's limited in that way, but when it comes to actually fixing things, be that, you know, buildings that Ralph destroys or people's relationships or their feelings, Fix-It Felix can fix it.
Very good. Meganbob, who is your Savvy Head?
Guys, our Savvy Heads are gonna get along so well. I brought Ray Palmer.
Oh, delightful.
Oh, nice.
Ray Palmer is, as far as I'm concerned, is only from Legends of Tomorrow because that is my only exposure, which is not he does science in a very hand-wavy way. But, you know, he has Palmer tech. He's sort of a Tony Stark type. Made lots of money, invented lots of little fiddly bits, lived in the past with some dinosaurs for a while and made stuff out of twigs. Very resourceful, but also so sweet. So pure and sweet and believes there's good in everybody.
The fifth character slot is the Skinner. Even after everyone around them has abandoned their humanity, become violent monsters driven only by id, the Skinner remembers the importance of decorum. The last remaining connection to the world that was, the Skinner is an artist and a student of culture, an expert at manipulating people, and a diplomat in a world that has all but forgotten the meaning of that word. Dan, who is your Skinner?
My Skinner is Captain Jack Harkness from Doctor Who and Torchwood.
Nice.
Very good. All right, why don't you tell us a little bit about him? I was not in that episode.
Yeah. So Jack Harkness is a time-traveling immortal. He hangs out with the Doctor on occasion. He joined Torchwood, which is sort of Britain's version of the X-Files. He typically has access to various types of like alien weaponry and gadgetry, some of which he hides in his butt. He is aggressively omnisexual. And also, he, like, has this weird thing where he sort of makes other people omnisexual for him. Like, regardless of their typical inclinations, people just kinda are just real into Jack Harkness. He's very smart, really, really charming, great in a fight. He's just, like, an all-around charming action hero, I guess.
Meganbob, who is your Skinner?
My Skinner is Don Draper.
Oh, very good. Tell us about Don Draper.
He is a person who rose from nothing and lied and schemed his way into becoming a named partner in an ad firm and has won over so many people. He's made a lot of enemies, but for the most part, men want to be him and women want to do him. That's kind of his thing.
And finally, Miles, who is your Skinner?
Oh god. So I just realized that what I did with this list went through many incarnations and characters were being swapped out the whole time and everything. So yeah, I just realized that my first four characters are all like super nice, awesome ladies who are great. My Skinner is Hannibal Lecter.
Oh my god. A fine representative of the male gender.
Yeah, that's great. Wonderful. All right, tell us about Hannibal Lecter.
Hannibal Lecter is a serial killer and a cannibal. He is a fucking genius who is incredibly articulate, and in the film The Silence of the Lambs, which is what I'm primarily basing this version of him on because it's the only one I personally officially recognize, he helps the police with a murder investigation, and he does so in like creepy, manipulative, but also charming ways by working on Clarice the detective, and he's super debonair and talky and loves to kind of play with words and mess with people's heads and just be generally charming and then eat them.
And finally, the Nux. I mean, the Dumpus. Yes. Despite not having any survival instincts or combat skills, this character, against all odds, managed to survive the apocalypse. And whether you like it or not, they are tagging along. Most likely because they are handcuffed to another member of your party through a torn-off car door. And right now, it's difficult to say whether they or the car door are the bigger dead weight. But by the end of this journey, who knows? Maybe they'll turn out to be useful? Maybe? Meganbob, who is Miles's Dumpus?
Oh, well, I mean, I'm sorry. I would be sorry no matter whose Dumpus it was. Your Dumpus is Coach Z from Homestar Runner.
Dude, I haven't seen Homestar Runner in probably, I'm gonna go with like 15 to 20 years. Mm-hmm. I'm an old person. Will you remind me of who that is?
Coach Z is a creepy green weirdo who is arguably a coach, but mainly just hangs around being weird and creepy, and no one likes him.
Okay.
Dan, do you have a better description of Coach Z? I don't know what else to say about him.
No, you did a real good job there, Meganbob, with that description.
No, I mean, that's basically it. He's just like a worthless coach who, he's okay at rapping.
Yeah, he wears an oversized Z medal on his chest, and he has a backwards hat, and kind of styles himself after a rapper.
I've got his wiki page up right now.
Tries real hard to be cool. Is I think like one of his main things.
So hard.
All right, I'll take it.
I mean, you don't have much of a choice.
Yes.
I mean, we'll see about that.
We'll see how the dice fall. But Miles, in the meantime, who is Dan's Dumpus?
Dan's Dumpus is Torgo from Manos the Hands of Fate.
You bastard!
Miles, tell us
So
about
great.
Torgo.
Torgo is a satyr, I guess? At least he was supposed to be, but somewhere along the way, he just became a dude with really big thighs. He takes care of the place while the master is away. And the only two things he's ever seen doing in the film, as terms of him having any agency, are carrying shit and, like, making weird handsy gestures that are really creepy.
Also trying extremely inefficiently to kill the master and getting killed himself.
Yeah, everything he tries to do, he does, like, ridiculously slowly and awkwardly.
And finally, Dan, who is Meganbob's Dumpus?
Meganbob's Dumpus is Moist from Dr. Horrible Sing-Along Blog.
Oh, that's great. Tell us about Moist.
Moist is the supervillain sidekick to Dr. Horrible, although I use the term supervillain in the loosest possible definition of the word. I'm not entirely sure he's a villain, and he is very, very borderline super. His main ability is making things moist and being constantly sweaty. That is the extent of his power. He's also just, kind of a milquetoast sad sack.
Yay, that's my favorite flavor.
I had a feeling you'd enjoy that.
We now have 3 vehicles filled to capacity with heroes for 3 epic Fury road trips. But before we peel out, we have a little time before the light changes. We're going to play a quick game of red light, green light, and see which car everyone ends up in. Each of you, please roll a d6.
I got a 4.
I got a 3.
I got a 1.
So it looks like Miles will be giving Brienne of Tarth to Meganbob. Meganbob will be giving Ray Palmer to Dan. And Dan will be giving Predator to Miles.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that hurts.
All right, players, please introduce your ragtag truckload of greasy outlaws.
Filling in with my Battle Babe spot, since I no longer have one, will be the Predator.
Ooh, I want that pinup calendar.
Then I have Carolina Dean from Runaways, Vin from Mistborn, Kaylee from Firefly, Hannibal Lecter, who I imagine feels more comfortable now that Predator is in the group,
They have a lot to talk about. They have a lot in common.
and Coach Z from Homestar Runner.
In the driver's seat is Ray from Star Wars. Crowded in the cabin is Carrie, Ray Palmer from Legends of Tomorrow, Fix-It Felix, Jack Harkness, and then clinging to the back of the rig is Torgo.
My team is She-Ra from She-Ra, Jack from Mass Effect, Fiona Glenann from Burn Notice, probably sitting right next to Jack and talking about guns. And then I have Brienne, probably wondering what a gun is. And Don Draper in the back seat, getting very drunk. Passed out on... No, is he passed out? Well, I don't know. Probably trying to stay far away from Moist from Dr. Horrible.
All right, and with that, grab your snack of choice, whether it be popcorn and M&Ms or two-headed irradiated lizards, because you're about to be treated to a new cinematic masterpiece. Chapter 1. What a lovely day. It starts off like a normal supply run. A convoy of heavily armed vehicles hauling supplies from the Citadel to trade with Gastown and the Bullet Farm. But then, the moment comes. The vehicle at the center of the convoy, the War Rig, makes a hard left turn, leaving the road and heading off into the wasteland. Behind the wheel of that rig is a member of your party, one of Joe's soldiers who's had enough of being an instrument of his twisted will. Riding along with them in a hidden cargo space are a few others that they've also won over to their cause, other members of your party. They plan to make a new life for themselves, free of his reach, but they will soon learn that the road between them and that destination is longer than they could ever imagine. All of the characters you've chosen for your party are all around here, traveling in vaguely the same direction, but not all of them are necessarily on the same side right now. Some might still be loyal towards Joe, some might be more out for themselves than they are for the rest of the team, but for the moment, they all have a bigger problem. If there was a sign that said, "Keep off of this particular area of dirt," you must have missed it, but the residents, a group of bandits known as buzzards, are not showing you a lot of hospitality. They are currently closing in on your war rig in their spike-covered vehicles, attempting to peel peel it apart with buzzsaws and a large modified bulldozer. Also, it looks like Joe might be getting a little clingy. A detachment of his war boys are approaching fast behind you, riding in muscle cars and hurling explosive spears your way. Things are looking dire, and a member of your party realizes that they'll need to come up with a big play to ensure escape. They could try to vanish into that massive dust and lightning storm that is building on the horizon, but they need some way of ensuring that they survived the ordeal and their pursuers didn't. Alternatively, they could come up with some sort of other impressive display, counterattack, or escape maneuver, but whatever it is, it's gonna have to be pretty damn crazy. Miles, which of your characters steps up, and what do they do to ensure your party's escape?
I think that we're going to go with the Predator. So the Predator is actually going to realize what's happening and make like they're going to go into the storm, right? But as soon as they start to go in, and right as the storm starts to sweep over them, the Predator cloaks the vehicle. And as he's doing that, sets off the cunning trap that had been waiting here this whole time, involving giant logs. And the giant logs roll down into Immortan Joe's army and everything, and just like knock out the wheels of their tires and the motorcycle dudes and everything. And meanwhile, we just skirt the edge of the storm, baby, and get away.
Giant desert logs.
I was gonna say,
Giant desert logs. The Predator has had this going for like hundreds of years, you guys. These have been here.
You want to know why there aren't any trees in this desert? It's because the Predator harvested all of them to make log traps.
Yes.
Dan, who is going to take the wheel of this situation for your party?
That would be Ray Palmer. So my party's war rig is driving as fast as it can in order to get away from both these raiders and also Immortan Joe's war boys. And things are looking dire. People are grabbing for their weapons and looking like they're going to fight, when suddenly the nearest of these little killer dune buggies coming up alongside just sort of explodes. And then a little ways back, another one has its wheels seemingly disappear, and it just goes skidding off worthlessly. And Ray Palmer suddenly appears on top of the war rig, having been jumping around, hitching rides, shrinking down important parts of enemy vehicles, and also just sort of enemy vehicles in general when necessary. Things are looking bad, however, as they begin to come towards the storm, but Ray just sort of flashes a smile, raises up his hand, and shrinks the storm down into a bottle, which he then turns around and throws back at the pursuing enemies, and then returns the storm to its normal size now that it is behind them, catching every one of the pursuers in the sand and the lightning.
Meganbob, which character are you going with?
It's going to be She-Ra. She-Ra's going to leap out of the car. Everybody's going to surround her. And she is going to say, you know, I was like you. I also fought for a really bad cause that I didn't like, and that made me feel like shit. And look at how terrible your lives are in this post-apocalyptic wasteland. Look, I know of a much better situation. She draws them like a little map on a napkin to the Whispering Wood. It's like, this is way better. I mean, obviously the Whispering Wood is but, you know, sort of a myth in this place, but, you know, maybe it's out there. And then they're all going to be charmed. And then if they're not charmed, she's going to turn into She-Ra and just like punch the shit out of them. So the ones who are down with this sort of like quest for the Whispering Wood thing that is now a sidebar to this whole affair that I have cunningly inserted are going to be
sadly
like,
the Whispering Woods was cut down in order to make the Predator's log trap.
there's like 2 trees left. That's still a wood. So those war boys are going to be like jumping, and they're going to like hang onto the roof. They're just like the luggage rack of this. I don't know why we're in this kind of van, but the luggage rack of it, it's like, yeah, this is rad. This is way better. Also, we're disobeying our boss. This is so great. And then, you know, the ones who have been knocked out by She-Ra, she's going to put them in a pile. Leave them to be tidied up.
Chapter 2, A Family Squabble. The storm clouds have passed, and your party members are now scattered and very dirty, but they are all at least still alive. In fact, they seem to be the only things left alive from here to the dusty horizon. They brush themselves off and all gather together at the war rig, these 6 enemies of Joe who have momentarily escaped his grasp. But before they can start designing matching t-shirts, a fight breaks out within their ranks. For some reason, 2 of your party members start beating the ever-loving crap out of each other. Dan, you're up first. Which of your 2 party members are fighting? What are they fighting about? Who wins and how do they do it? And what are the repercussions of this fight moving forward once your team resumes their journey across the desert?
I think I'm going to go with Ray and Carrie.
Okay.
Ray is trying to...
Star Wars Ray, not Ray Palmer, just to be clear.
Oh, you're right. I have 2 Rays. Yeah. No, well, Ray Palmer has already been used.
Yes, just saying it.
Yeah. Ray, last name unknown, brings the rig to a stop and turns to try to start making plans with everyone, try to figure out what they're going to do next. One of the big issues right now is that they did not take enough water. Their rig got hit on the way with one of those explosive spears, and their small supply of water has leaked out. So they're basically, they have fuel and everything, just no water. And Carrie is getting very upset at this. She doesn't like the feelings that she's getting for Jack Harkness. And so she's having a real tough time and is kind of freaking out and is getting the murderous look in her eyes. And some of the sharp objects in the rig begin to lift up. Some of the guns begin to lift up and point themselves at other people. Ray immediately steps in, points her hand forward, and begins, pushing these objects away so that Carrie can't use them to hurt anyone. Carrie swings around, glares at Ray, and the two of them begin this sort of telekinetic arm wrestling match. Objects around them begin to lift off the ground. Their friends also begin to lift off the ground. Torgo is immediately upside down. The rig itself begins to lift off the ground. The ground is shaking and begins to split open. And just as it feels like the world itself is going to shake itself apart under this telekinetic fight, suddenly there's a geyser that springs up. A geyser of water, because they unintentionally hit an aquifer, and now they can refill their rig. The tension has been released. Carrie and Ray look at each other with newfound appreciation, and also realize that they can combine their powers together in order to become much stronger than the sum of their parts.
Meganbob, is that just the wind, or are 2 of your characters caught up in a furious vexation?
Moist has decided to claim that
he's
he
dead.
is a worthwhile member of this team, and Jack is saying, no, you ain't shit. Also, we should probably kill you and turn you into jerky, because that is clearly the best use of you.
Oh, Jack from Mass Effect. We have 2 Jacks as well. Oh.
Yes. And he's going, no, I'm not. I can make things moist. I'm so good at it. And then suddenly their vehicle is like slightly dewy. Jack's going, ugh. And then he touches her, and then she's slightly dewy. And she's like, wait, this is actually, with this hot desert wind blowing, it's actually kind of refreshing. He's like, yeah, see, I am useful. And then she pins him up against the van and like chokes him out. And she's like, you're not that useful. Watch yourself. It is agreed that he will be allowed to stay as long as he can keep this sort of like low-tech air conditioner thing happening. And also that he carries all of Jack's shit.
So Moist has been demoted to pack mule / humidifier.
It's more than he deserves.
And Miles, which of your characters are having a dust-up in the dust?
That would be Hannibal Lecter and Coach Z.
Shit!
The reason they're having a dust-up in the dust, the reason they're fighting is basically over a small disagreement. Hannibal wants to eat him.
A slight disagreement.
Yeah, it's a misunderstanding, or at least everybody thought it was at first, but then Hannibal was like, no, I actually literally want to eat him. Now, you know what it is that the guy has been in this fucking rig with them this whole time, bitching and moaning and trying to rap badly, talking about how, we shouldn't have turned our backs, and we should be doing our jorbs, that kind of thing. And Hannibal is just fucking sick of it. The problem is that, as he wins the fight easily, like there's no contest, and he just like pins him down and takes a bite out of him, which horrifies the other people in the party. So Hannibal basically then has to like go to work on them one by one, like explaining to them, Coach Z, let me ask you a question. What is it that you actually do here? Do you have any sort of skills whatsoever? And Coach Z starts talking about his Tony Awards, and he's like, he can do theater. That is it? And, basically slowly going to work on everybody around, manipulating everybody, because he's just hungry. And the guy's annoying. But he's sitting there going like, yes, Vin, didn't at one point you go absolutely fucking insane and go on a rampage killing multiple people in a single household on your way to a blunt assassination? How did that feel? The kind of shit Hannibal Lecter does. And eventually he convinces them to stand by and let him eat Coach Z.
Oh my god!
Well, it's glad we were able to resolve that conflict peacefully.
Yeah, and the ramifications of this make Carolina, Vin, and Kaylee all kind of question their humanity.
Wow.
Kaylee, in this case, has been arguing against it the whole time, is only barely convinced, and when Hannibal is done, she's like looking around in the sand, and she finds this, she doesn't know where it came from, but this like weird like face mask that somebody must have been wearing somewhere. You know, it like covers their entire face and everything, and she says we really need to put that on Hannibal's face to make sure he doesn't eat any of us. And so Vin uses her abilities to manipulate metal to wrap that around Hannibal's face and seal it closed, so that he has to spend the rest of the movie talking through this weird face thingy that was just kind of lying there on the ground. No one knows where it came from.
Chapter 3. It was a one-way, one-lane canyon with the people eater. Count what's owed, Fury Road, canyon with the people eater. I like nipple clamps, canyon with the people eater. Come and witness me.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Before you fled from Joe, a member of your party made a deal with a motorcycle gang known as the Rock Riders for safe passage through a dangerous canyon pass, full of unstable rock pillars and bridges that could collapse from the slightest provocation. However, you think that deal that you struck up might end up being void, because you recently noticed 3 separate war parties coming up behind you. Immortan Joe himself and also the forces of the Bullet Farmer are still far behind you, but hot on your tail, basically right now, are the Big Rigs, Polecats, and Flamers that serve the People Eater, and he is up at the front. Come to count the cost. Somehow, you'll need to make it through this canyon. Do you try to negotiate with the Rock Riders to still honor your deal, even though you are trailing behind you far more trouble than they ever agreed to? Do you somehow try to sneak past them, or find or make another path? Or do you embrace the carnage of a full 3-way firefight and just hope to make it out alive? Meganbob, which of your characters comes up with a way for you to make it through this canyon, and how do they do it?
Brienne. Brienne is gonna go to what she knows. Ditch everything, everybody. We're gonna hide out in the nothingness and hope we fucking survive. They're gonna be like, what can we carry? Very little. Great, that's how I like it. Everybody's gonna get out of the car. Moist is gonna be crying because he wanted to stay in that relatively nice environment. Fiona's gonna be scrambling to try and get all of her guns. Jack is gonna be like, well, I have the humidifier, so it's all fine. They're gonna go and hide amongst the rocks, and then in so much of Game of Thrones, just sort of slowly crawl their way through dangerous territory where at any time something could try to kill them. But a lot of hiding seems to work for her. And if the hiding doesn't work, there's multiple people with swords. But Brienne by herself is pretty much enough. And they'll probably just eat whatever hardy desert grass lives around there.
Miles, with the Rock Riders in front of you and the People Eaters Flamers behind you, you might say that you're between a rock and a charred place.
I mean, I would never say that, but you might. The person who will be solving this problem for me is Kaylee. See, she's been making some modifications to the war rig. Using, spare parts and anything that anybody happens to have to hand. Some of the fucking Predator's weapons and shit that he left behind when he went off to go try and find Immortan Joe so he could take off all his gear and fight him in single combat. He left a bunch of shit behind, and Kaylee's been working with all of it, all this technology. Bottom line, she's basically given the war rig jet engines and turned it into a flying vehicle.
Oh my god.
So when all this shit happens, they're doing the whole thing. Fucking, I imagine Vin is out there doing the Furiosa thing, our deal is still good or whatever, but just waiting for the signal. And when the signal is struck, Kaylee pushes some buttons, pulls a lever, the fucking new wings come out, the wheels go up, the rockets blast, and we just go right fucking through them and away from the other guys. It's not gonna last a long ass time, but it'll be a nitrous burst.
Dan, how do you make it through this canyon?
With the help of Fix-It Felix. We're trying to negotiate with these Rock Riders when we catch wind of the People Eater and his boys coming up behind us. We make a break for it. The Rock Riders don't immediately understand what's happening, and they just assume that we're trying to run. From them, they don't realize that there are other enemies coming up behind. So they collapse the canyon. So this thing fills up with rock. We're stuck. And then the Rock Riders realize that there's these war boys coming up. And so they start getting in this big fight. They've essentially temporarily cut off the war boys from us. So we just kind of have a few seconds to really contemplate our doom as death gets ever closer. And then Felix just jumps down from the war rig, walks over to the rubble, and then says, well, it just looks like this canyon is broken. And so he pulls out his hammer, taps one of the rocks, and all of them go back up into the canyon walls. and we're able to just drive on out while the two enemy groups keep each other busy.
Chapter 4. Stuck in a quagmire. It's late, and a blue filter has fallen over the landscape. You're now past the canyon and have moved on into some much soggier environs. Your party's about to breathe a collective sigh of relief when suddenly, the rig stops dead in its tracks. The wheels spin, but it can't get any traction, and it slowly sinks deeper and deeper into the mud with each passing second. And not only are you caught in an oily bog, but has anyone noticed that bright light? Encroaching gunfire? The bullet farmer has gotten impatient with the rest of your pursuers and has ridden out to claim you himself. He is searching the area for you with a giant spotlight and firing twin machine guns and the occasional rocket-propelled grenade your way. You have two options. If you come up with a way to get the rig unstuck quickly and get to higher ground, you could probably lose him in the swamp. Or retaliate first. Send one member of your party out alone to set a trap for him or fight him head on. Then the rest of your party could free the rig at their leisure without having to worry about the occasional light showers of lead and explosives coming their way. Miles, which of these two problems do you want to prioritize and who is going to solve it?
I think I'm going to go with Carolina. In contrast to the knight and the blue filter, she is a shining beacon of light as she flies through the sky. The bullet farmer attempts to shoot her down, but it has been demonstrated numerous times over the course of Runaways that Carolina can make energy shields that things as paltry as bullets would have no effect on her. So she is going to smack those bullets aside and fire a burst of light directly into his eyes, blinding him. At which point she will basically let him roam around, maniacally going, "I am the scales of justice," or whatever. And then she'll just shoot another energy blast down on his vehicle and blow it to shit before heading back the way she came.
Dan, how are you going to get through this?
As the bullet farmer is driving through the desert, he sees a lone figure walking very calmly towards him. He doesn't think twice, opens fire, hits the figure falls over dead. As the bullet farmer's truck gets closer, the figure suddenly sits up. The bullet farmer swings around in surprise, points both guns at him and says, "Who the hell are you?" The figure turns, looks up at him and says, "I'm Captain Jack Harkness. And who are you?"
I don't like this at all.
So the bullet farmer is genuinely taken aback, only partially because this man apparently just recovered from a lethal headshot, but mainly because of these feelings that are suddenly welling up inside of him now that he's close to this man.
Oh my god.
Jack Harkness climbs up onto the truck, very slowly caresses the bullet farmer's cheek.
You can't do this.
And
Dan,
says,
you cannot do this.
"Would you like to know a secret?" And the bullet farmer says, "What?" Jack Harkness just sort of suddenly puts the barrel of a gun up against the bullet farmer's head and says, "I'm extremely good at hiding guns." And then pulls the trigger.
I think it should be a disqualification.
Says the guy who ate Coach Z.
That wasn't nearly as creepy.
All right, Meganbob, you're up.
Similar to Dan's, a figure is walking alone. He's got like a white handkerchief out. And the bullet farmer's like, "What?" And then pulls up next to him and is holding many, many guns and looking in the face of Don Draper, who has a scotch tumbler with him because of course he does. Says, "I hear that you're a bullet farmer. That's interesting. I've heard there are other bullet farmers, but I think that you could be the most popular bullet farmer." See, you've gone with the word farmer. I don't think that's really what you want to aim for. How about this? Bullet crafter. Yeah? Yeah, all right. And then he starts mocking up some sort of posters in the dirt. He's like, "All right, see, there's going to be you, and it's going to be you looking lovingly on a bunch of little bullets tucked into their beds that you have made and raised them yourself to be the best that they can possibly be. And then this next poster is going to be you sending them off to school where they're going to become guns."
Is that how bullets work?
I mean, look, it's the apocalypse. Who the fuck knows?
A gun is basically a bullet school,
Yeah. And then the bullet farmer's going to go, yeah, I think you're really onto something. And he's going to hand them a contract and say, "All right, great. Please sign this. Excellent. I will be back with you to talk about the mock-ups in about 2 weeks. All right, thanks. Bye."
Chapter 5. My clan was Swaddle Dog. I just like the phrase Swaddle Dog. That's
Sure.
Day for night has ended, and you now find yourself traveling through dry yellow sand dunes on the far edge of the known territories. You know this as the land of the Vuvalini, Proud warrior women who could prove themselves to be worthy allies, but who are also notoriously distrustful of outsiders. You come across a tall tower made of wooden scaffolding. A woman at the top cries for help. But this ain't your first day in the apocalypse. That's bait. You can't see them, but you know that hidden all around you are Vuvolini snipers. So now, you need to convince the many mothers who are all watching you from a distance that you are cool, and somehow charm, negotiate, or intimidate them into giving you help. And good luck if you go for that last option. If you make one wrong move or say the wrong thing, snap, right in the medulla. Dan, who is stepping forward as the representative from your group, and what do they do?
Well, I'm really regretting using Jack Harkness in that last battle. Because now, Torgo steps forward.
Oh, no!
Your first choice for face of the party, I'm sure.
Yeah, he's just...
Dan, this really is your first time playing Surprise Party, isn't it?
He looks back at the rest of his war rig and he says, "Don't worry, guys. I got this." And very slowly staggers forward across the sand, an eerie, haunting theme playing as he does so. He says, "Listen, I've been around men who tend to keep lightly dressed women in the middle of the desert for no apparent reason. And, well, I was a party to it for some time. I'm not proud to admit it, but there it is. But you know what? I realized the folly of that lifestyle, and I turned against it. Largely because I fell in love with one of the women that he wanted to make one of his wives, but I turned against it. I'm here because I did it again, against Immortan Joe. And I will face him. I may not win. I likely won't win. But I'll stand with you against him anyway."
All right, Meganbob, what are you doing to win over the Vuvolini?
Fiona Glenann is going to slowly back the van up in front of the pillar with the bait, and then just call out, "I've got something to trade if you want to relax and help us out." And open the back of the van, and it is just so much C4 and guns. More C4 and guns than I think even Mad Max could have imagined. They're gonna go, what are these little white blocks? And she's gonna go, oh, this is the best day of my life. I get to share this gift with other women who like to wreck shit. And so then they are gonna spend a heartwarming day together. Well, I don't know what the rest of the team is off doing. Probably making fun of Moist. And she is going to spend a heartwarming day with the Vuvolini, showing them all the cool stuff you can do with high-grade explosives. So they're going to blow up some rocks. They're going to cave in a small canyon. They're going to dig a hole and then bury it and then have a really long fuse and then make a small canyon. So it's going to be a lot of montage of that. And then just women laughing together and sharing in the joy of destruction.
Miles, you're last, and you're down to your last character. What you doing?
Yeah, my last character is Vin from Mistborn, and so I think this should be a fairly easy negotiation. Vin is going to just kind of openly walk out and demand to speak to whoever is here. She is a, spoiler alert, she is a queen at one point of an empire, an empress, if you will, in addition to a religious figure, so she is used to these kind of high-powered negotiations, so to speak. If any of them do attempt to snap her, that's nice for them, because the bullet's going to stop and go somewhere else, because it's made of metal. So that should be enough to get these people's attention. If that does happen, if none of them do shoot her, then she's going to attempt to address them and basically figure out, what's going on here? Who are you? Where are we? Etc. She will learn naturally, in short order, that the green place was covered by crows or whatever it is we're doing, and that, can't keep going the direction we're going, have to go back. And if that is in fact the case, or if she does... If the women, do say, as she's trying to enlist their help, if they do say, "But he's got an army," then Vin is going to take one of the little, nuts or bolts that she keeps in her pocket, drop it on the ground, push up against it to fly into the air, burn Pewter and Duralumin to make herself essentially super strong, do a backflip in the air and kick that fucking watch post down with one kick and kick it a mile away or some shit, because she is a superhero. Yeah, that impressive display of competence. She's gonna land, looking at the ground and then just look up and be like, nobody is going to fuck with us. If they do, I will kill them.
Chapter 6. Feels Like Hope. They're convinced. The Vuvalini lower their weapons, and out from behind the dunes come the rest of their number. In addition to the seasoned warriors that you were expecting, it looks like they've also come across a few other wanderers over the years, like yourselves, that they've taken under their wings and taught their ways. And can it be? Yes, you recognize these people. You never thought you'd see them again, but here they are. Your family. Each of you will now choose 3 characters from your party. Each of those characters reunites with a former teammate or loved one from their own setting that has been adopted by the Vuvalini. Your party is now expanding as 3 new characters are getting added to your roster before you embark on your final challenge. Choose wisely. Meganbob, which of your 3 characters get to reunite with an old friend, and which friends are they?
So She-Ra sees Bo. Bo is there with his very revealing midriff top and the traditional bow and arrow, and also his magical electro lute or whatever that thing is. Just strumming a tune, looking adorable, leaning against, there are no trees here, leaning against a rock. Brienne is gonna see Arya, who is now grown up and extra murdery.
Vuvalini Arya is a very scary thought.
Yes, very
so
scary.
Strong. She's been doing a lot of desert push-ups. So more ripped than, I know, desert push-ups, the hardest kind. Also, Don Draper Joan is going to be there. Just hanging out. Just hanging out, being real cool. Cooler than everyone else, but also knows everything about everyone else and knows how to do exactly what she needs to do to get what she wants.
Miles, which characters that your party thought were lost forever are now found?
Vin is going to be the first one, since she's right there, to see her husband, Ellen Venture, who is also a Mistborn, and actually kind of stronger than her in some ways. I'm spoiling the shit out of these books, and I'm sorry, but I don't have a choice. But yeah, she's going to be super happy to see Ellen again, and he will be very useful because he can do all the things she can do with perhaps a little bit less control, but more raw power behind it. At which point, Carolina is going to spot a young woman hanging out in the midst of the Vuvalini and get super excited for a second. Nico, really stealthily tucks the DDC into, her pouch and is like, yeah, no, I'm here because I got adopted by the Vuvalini and certainly have no other mission here of any kind. Good to see you too, though, Carolina. Yeah, and my magic will be of great help. And then the Predator is just going to call out, Dutch! As he sees Arnold Schwarzenegger's character from the first movie, and they hug because they were very good friends there at the end, I think. They had a moment.
Yeah, that's how it happened.
Yeah.
Yep, that's how I remember it.
He taught me how to make log traps.
Yeah, it saved our asses earlier.
And Dan, who are you going with?
So Felix runs into Vanellope.
Yeah.
Who has taken to this world unusually well. She really likes the constant racing. Jack Harkness runs into his old friend, the Doctor.
Okay. Which incarnation?
I mean, I'm going to say David Tennant, because
That's the correct answer.
he is both my favorite and the best. And then, Torgo runs into the Master. And not the Master from Doctor Who, just increasing our instance of multiple characters from different universes with the same name.
That caused some confusion when they first got taken in by the Vuvalini, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Has the Master turned over a new leaf in any way? What's his what's his wasteland look? Or is
No, he still basically just looks like an evil Freddie Mercury. With a real nasty looking Doberman and his weird black and red hand robe, speaks very slowly and haltingly and very intensely. Still is lugging around that giant painting of himself, which he just sets up anywhere nearby.
After weighing your options, you have decided that there is only one course of action you can take that ensures you will have any sort of a future. Head back the way you came, straight through Immortan Joe's forces, and retake the Citadel. You gear up and start heading back in that direction, but then you find something odd. As you approach his convoy, all is silent, and nothing is moving. You get closer and find that many of the vehicles are flipped over, or reduced to smoking husks, and everyone you come across is dead. The Doof Warrior has played his last tune. Rictus Erectus has gone flaccid. The Immortan Joe has proven that he was, in fact, quite Morton all along.
Oh my god.
You want to celebrate, But a pit in your stomach tells you that the real fight is just beginning. When you arrive back at the Citadel, you find it occupied, not by the war boys or warlords, but by something else. Something far greater. As long as you've lived in this wasteland, one question has been continually burning at the back of your mind. Who killed the world? And now, staring at this thing, you have your answer. The embodiment of some sort of apocalypse from another work of fiction now stands before you. It killed the world, it killed Joe, and it's going to kill you, unless you do something. And if you want to reclaim the Citadel and start to rebuild the world, the thing that killed it needs to be dealt with permanently. Dan, who killed Meganbob's world?
Meganbob's world was killed by a force of super intelligent militarized apes from Planet of the Apes.
All right.
Nice.
Very good. Meganbob, who killed Miles's world?
Just birds.
Birds?
Just a bunch of birds.
Bunch of birds, huh?
From, Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds?
Yeah, but like all the other birds as well. Because in Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, it would have you believe that most of the birds are small burbs, but no.
So it's more like Birdemic.
Okay, all right, more birds than you would have thought.
In that they dive bomb you and explode?
Yeah, and also spit acid and basically fly like really bad clip art where just their wingtips flap up and down.
I mean, also they form like a bird mech.
All right, we will let Miles hammer out all of those details, but we got some birds that you got to deal with, Miles.
That's fine.
And finally, Miles, who killed Dan's world?
Dan's world was killed by the Vogons from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Oh, jeez.
All right. You finally have a chance to fix what's broken, but it won't be easy. Meganbob, how do Bo, Joan Holloway, and Arya Stark help you reclaim the Citadel and solve the problem of the Planet of the Apes?
Okay, first of all, Joan is going to, with the help of Arya, disguise herself as an ape. And then she's going to go around and sort of do recon and find out all the ape gossip. So she's going to know who the head of the apes is like really into. And then which of the apes feels like they're not being heard enough. And which of the apes feels like, oh, you know what? I gave a lot to this whole organization. And I can't believe that this is the Christmas bonus I'm getting. I hate this family. And then Bo is going to come in and play some of his electric lute. It's going to be sort of traveling minstrel situation. And Joan's going to find out that what these apes are really hungry for now that the Doof Warrior's dead is going to be tunes. Guys, that's the problem with the apocalypse. Not enough tunes. So obviously, Bo answered to their prayers. So Bo's gonna roll up and, look suitably humble instead of his normal glorious self. He's gonna put some dust in his red mustache and play some of that sweet electro harp music. And then while these apes are jamming out to what in the apocalypse counts as amazing music, Arya, also disguised as an ape, is going to sneak up behind the leader of the apes and then kill him, and then take his face and assume that role. And become the Lord of the Apes! More sick music for all.
All right, Miles, how do Nico Minoru, Ellen Venture, and Dutch help you reclaim the Citadel and cure this birdemic?
First of all, Dutch is just unloading with the M16. Like, the scene opens with him and Ellen, like, back to back. He's fucking unloading, shooting birds out of the sky. Ellen is, like, flying around with his fucking sword, like, chopping them up, right? Nico is just kind of, like, trying to fend him off and everything with her magic and her witch arm. But then, after a minute, they realize something weird. Dutch realizes he takes a minute from the fighting and examines one of the fallen birds and realizes that it's made of metal. And
Don't do it, Miles.
And he calls out to Ellen. He goes, Ellen, try to use allomancy. And Ellen's like, what? But he does it anyway, and he can manipulate the birds with allomancy like they're made of metal, which they are. Because you guys, birds aren't real. Yeah! It turns out. I don't think any of my references to this conspiracy theory have actually made the final cut of any episode. But this one will, because these birds aren't real, and you can learn more by going to birdsaren'treal.com. That is an actual website, and I strongly encourage all of you to visit it, because it's fucking hilarious, and also it turns out true. And so, once they realize that all the birds are fucking mechanical and shit, not only does that make it easier for Ellen to just, like, sweep them away with his allomancy, but Nico can then use the Staff of One and say, in a strong, clear voice, Birdemic, which of course means that a virus is now running through the neural networks of the mechanical birds, like in fucking Independence Day, and they all drop dead.
Yeah!
Because the Birdemic has destroyed them.
Dan, how do Vanellope von Schweetz, the Doctor, and the Master help you reclaim the Citadel and solve the problem of the Vogons?
So, the reason that the world was reduced to an inhospitable wasteland in the first place was because the Vogons were trying to force the humans to leave their own planet. You know, they were just like, oh, well, we'll just make sure that they have no water or natural resources or land that can support plant life, and then they'll just leave. And it didn't work, of course, because the humans don't have space travel technology, so the Vogons just return with a planet destroyer, and they're like, well, you know what? We tried. We honestly tried to get you to leave your planet, and it just didn't work. So Vanellope, the Doctor, and the Master all pile into the TARDIS and launch up toward the Vogon planet destroyer hanging in space overhead. And I'm really regretting I didn't take a Star Wars character for this right now. But so the TARDIS is flying up towards this giant planet destroyer, which begins to unleash its various point defense systems. And the Doctor's really having trouble getting the TARDIS close enough so that they can actually board the vessel and disable or destroy it. And Vanellope eventually gets just real impatient with him, pushes him aside, takes the controls, and starts piloting the TARDIS like poetry in motion, glitching out around the incoming projectiles and lasers, until eventually the TARDIS manages to land inside this weapon, and all three of them get out and start racing through the complex, heading for the main control room. The Doctor is doing most of the heavy lifting during this little action sequence. His sonic screwdriver is reprogramming nearby robots to fight each other. It's helping them to get through doors and past security systems. Eventually, they get to the bridge of this place. The Doctor bursts in and says, it's over! All your plans have come to an end. Prostetnik Vogon Jeltz, the main captain in charge of the Earth's destruction.
You remembered his name, Dan. I love you so much.
Very slowly starts reaching towards the button that, when pressed, will destroy the Earth. And he's very slow, but, like, this is a very large bridge, and so the heroes don't really have time to get to him. But then the Master raises up this weird, like, shriveled hand effigy thing that he has, and he starts casting this spell, and it lights on fire. And then all of a sudden, Jeltz's hand disappears in a burst of flame, like what happens with Torgo's hand at the end of Manos, the Hands of Fate. And he is unable to push the button. And therefore, the Vogon's plan is completely and totally foiled.
And tallying up the points, this is a close one, you guys, but just barely, the winner this time is going to be Dan. Good job,
all right.
Dan.
Nice.
Beginner's luck, we'll call it.
Beginner's luck.
So yeah, running through these, the first round, I gave it to Dan for choosing Ray Palmer. It was close, there was a lot of good ones, but throwing the storm behind him I just thought was really cool. For the second round, with the fights, I can't in good conscience give it to the Hannibal Lecter eating Coach Z. So the Ray Carey fight was pretty cool. So again, Dan got points on that one. For round 3, which was getting through the canyon, I mean, converting the war rig into a spaceship is pretty cool. So that one won. Although, honorable mention to hiding out in the canyon and waiting for shit to die down. Probably, I'd imagine, spending like a whole book and a half just in the canyon waiting for shit to happen.
Absolutely.
Chapter 4. I really enjoyed the Don Draper ad campaign to persuade the bullet farmer to like change his ways or whatever, or at least distract him long enough for the others to escape. So well done, Meganbob, in that round. And then round 5, once again, everyone here was very good. That like, this was a very hard one to pick, but that like Torgo monologue was just wonderful. It was just so beautiful.
Good.
Screw you.
And finally, for the last chapter, I gave it to Miles. The birds aren't real is great. So, yeah, that was really good.
Well, I'll take that win.
Yeah, congratulations to Dan's party. You have managed to set aside your differences and retake the Citadel from the Vogons. So take a moment to tell us about what your characters do now that they once again have their freedom and their identities back.
Ray and Carrie are going to become joint rulers of the Citadel. They both shave their heads and paint their faces with grease, which is a good look for both of them, if you ask me. Felix and Ray Palmer spend a lot of time going around, ensuring that the Citadel is in actual working order. Let's see, what does Torgo do? I think Torgo and the Master have really made up. Torgo didn't realize until he saw the Master with the Vuvolini how much he missed him and how much he missed kind of what they had. And obviously they had their differences, but they're gonna try to work it out. And so they wander off into the desert to try to find a new Valley Lodge and make a new life there. And that just leaves the Doctor and Vanellope. One day Vanellope goes up to the Doctor and says, "Hey, so we have a time machine and we know what killed the world. Why don't we go stop that from happening?" And the Doctor starts talking about how, he can't really interfere with the time stream like that.
It's a fixed point.
If it's a fixed point, it would do too much damage. He can't in good conscience. He's mid over-explaining it when Vanellope has already run inside the TARDIS and disappeared.
So, if I was a Mad Max character, my name would be Bin Chicken Warrior. Yes. That's
Your
for
name
all.
would be what?
Bin Chicken Warrior? That's for our Australian fans. They know what kind of person I am. I'll steal all your food. I'll ruin your picnics. Real good. Time for the chook thanks.
Yeah.
All these Australian words and they're all birds anyway.
Man, I wish Liz was here.
Right?
All right. To give us a real Australian accent.
That's right, the authentic experience.
Over to Twitter, thank you to Flo Ho Ho Horian, Decade Fan, Kame Kame Ha Ha Ha, Brass Monkey, parentheses, that funky monkey, Sid, Old Acquaintance Be Forgot Rabbit, Vander Turner, Jake Der Gefalschte Jake, and my favorite, Fine, I'm Krista Muss. Thanks for joining the party, Krista. Over to Tumbles, thank you to Not Very Bright Raven, Jeep Rhyme, Sid Rabbit Blog, and Ultra Anonymous Angel. Over to Facebook, thank you to Matias Martinez, Robert Ramsey, and Adam Mayo.
I also wanted to share the newest iTunes review that we have. And folks, this is our first ever celebrity iTunes review.
What?
Wait, what?
Celebrity?
So here we go. This person's username is, I think it's Sui Seich?
Sweet
It's Suysyche. The review is titled, "I'm Commander Shepard." You guys. And the review goes, "And this is my favorite podcast on the internet."
We did it, y'all.
We made it. We made it. Gave him a discount on our free podcast.
Is that literally the whole review?
That is the whole
I
review.
love it.
Yeah, Commander Shepard's just real succinct like that,
Yeah.
I mean, there weren't that many dialogue options, to be fair.
At least we didn't get punched in the face. That was the other option. Thank you very much for listening to this week's episode of Surprise Party. Next week will be our 36th episode of Extraordinary League. And the week after that, guys, I'm real excited, Captain America versus Steven Universe.
Smash Metafiction is produced by Dan Mulcairn, with logo design by Claire Mulcairn.
Special thanks to Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com for our theme song, Volatile Reaction.
You can find us on Twitter at SmashFic Podcast and search for the Smash Fiction Podcast on Facebook, Tumblr, and YouTube.
Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice, and if you leave us a good review, we shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Smash Fiction is made possible thanks to our supporters on Patreon at patreon.com/smashfictionpodcast. Please consider donating as little as $1 each month. It helps us keep the show going. And we have great rewards and extra content for those who help us out.
If you have any suggestions, feedback, or other contributions, send them to us at smashfictionpodcast@gmail.com and help us continue the fight.
All right, so now I need to assign points to this. Dan, how do you do this? These are all so beautiful.
I know.
I just how do I choose? You can't. How do you quantify a rainbow?
You just kind of go with your gut, man.
I can't give Miles points for that. That's terrible. What do I?
What?
In a way, it's beautiful. How do I?
Go with your gut.
That's what Hannibal Lecter did.
Oh, so good.